Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Legacy Speaks. Today's counselor chat, I'm super excited because we're featuring Miss Evanye Lawson. She is the owner and primary therapist of the Love Center, the Self-Love Center. And we are going to be talking about all things self-love and all things self-esteem. So I'm super excited to welcome Miss Evanye.
Thank you for having me. I so appreciate it. I'm like, yeah, we're getting together, man. This is awesome.
I know. Super excited.
Super exciting.
So Evanye, as always, I always typically begin with asking you who you are. Let the people know who you are and what you do and everything about the Self-Love Center.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, thank you. So let me just tell you who I am. I consider myself the Love Propagandist because my main mission in life is to help people really connect with what love feels like for them and to be able to share that throughout the world. So what that really means for the Self-Love Center is I teach women how to prioritize their pleasure, and that means prioritizing the love that they have for themselves. And so I think sometimes people think pleasure and they think sexual, and it's like, well, that's one aspect of pleasure, but pleasure looks like loving yourself and being able to hold space for yourself even in those low moments. So that's what I do. So I do individual therapy with women. I also have a 90-day coaching program that's called Unapologetically Bold and Free, where I teach women how to really give no fucks. No fucks given. They throw all of them out the window and they come back to what they care about. And then I also give breathwork classes around the city, and I travel and give breathwork classes as well. And so for those of you who may not be familiar with breathwork is really just an active form of meditation where you're breathing at a fast-paced rate in order to evoke an emotionally cathartic release. And so you can find deep relaxation in this process. You balance out your emotions. You get the best sleep you've ever had. Yes, you might need to have it. You can release addictions. You can get extreme clarity and divine inspiration and focus and concentration. So breathwork is beautiful for so many things. It's a therapy unto itself. And so I provide that as well. And then the other thing that I provide that's fairly new are just these online classes. So if you're not ready to do individual deep processing work, you can do work with me, but you can do it on your own, in your own house from the computer, and really go through my classes where I teach you a variety of things on how to access your confidence, how to access your pleasure, how to really navigate being an empath, there's so many different classes. And so these are the ways that the Self-Love Center shows up. And I also have soul gatherings where people get together and we talk about conscious living, and we talk about crystals and chakras and tarot and oracles. So there's a lot of spirituality intertwined with the work that I do. So yeah, the Self-Love Center does all of that.
Awesome. Hey, you guys, I'll definitely include all of the links to her stuff in the description box below. Definitely check her out later on. But the reason why I wanted to talk to you, Evanye, is because February is all about love. It's all about, self-love or the relationship love. But I firmly believe in order for you to have a successful relationship, you have to make sure that you are one with yourself first. Mm-hmm. And how do you begin that process of making sure that your clients are able to understand the importance of self-love and improving their self-esteem?
Yeah, I love that question. I love that question. I think whenever I hear that question asked many times, I'm like, it feels so good to me. And the reason why it feels so good to me is because in order to really access that, you kind of have to know what self-love really means. One of the biggest questions that I get asked all the time is, how do I love myself? And what does that even look like? What does that even mean? And I thought I was loving myself. And so self-love, love in general, self-love in general just looks like being compassionate. So we have this kind of fantasy reality where we want this straight line to our goal, and we want it to be beautiful, we want it to be easy, we want it to be happy, we want it to be good, when the reality is that life happens in these up and down phases. Right. Like you start here and then all of a sudden you hit some rocks and then you got to climb back up and you go through the forest and you go through the ocean, and it doesn't always stay straight and simple. Right. So life goes up and down, and so when you're loving yourself, you're saying, I actually have empathy and I have compassion for the parts of me when I'm in that deep, dark place, that discomfort place, that place that creates irritation. And sometimes I'll have clients say, oh, I'm working towards self-love. I'm like, but no, you're already in it because you've just taken a moment to take a pause to say, actually, where I am is okay.
Oh, that's good.
Where I am is okay.
That's good.
And you don't have to, self-love is not a destination. It's not an outcome. It's a state of being. It's a state of knowing. It's a state of saying, where I am is okay. And I don't have to change it because it's part of my life. If I was living, and which I am, which I hope you are, if I'm living, then life is going to come with the turns. And we often need that friction, painful moment to teach us a level of resiliency and empathy. How do we know empathy if we've never known what it feels like to be rejected? So we can't expect life to not hold these painful moments. And that's what self-love is. So it's a state of being empathetic for yourself,
Right.
Having that level of compassion to know that right where you are is actually okay and you'll get out of it.
I think with that, it comes a level of mindfulness.
Oh yes.
And also going back to the topic of vulnerability, because I think when it comes to feelings, I feel like we're in a generation where we're trying to be so disconnected from our feelings. And we're so afraid to connect with other people because we're afraid to be hurt. And so being in a space where it's okay to, one, acknowledge our feelings, embrace them and accept them. I find like that's super important.
Oh yeah. That's juicy because it really does go back to awareness.
Yes.
Awareness is the key, right? So if you're not slowing down, right? We live in a fast-paced society.
Yeah.
Everything is like instant access. We have access to everything when we want it. And right now we've got Uber, we got Uber Eats, we got Prime. Yes. Like that will deliver the same day. Right. You don't have to wait for anything. But if you're like me and you remember the days where you had to go and look for stuff. Like if you wanted to learn information, you had to go to the library and look to see if a book held the information that you had. You didn't have access to the computer. Right. And so we're in this space where we've just learned to be kind of quick, very impulsive, and not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing. There's a space and a beauty for us to be very quick, but if you're wanting to really cultivate a space of self-love and self-compassion, you're gonna have to slow down, pay attention to how you're feeling. And one exercise that I always use with people is to say, you know what, just take a pause. Like take 3 deep breaths, 3 relaxing breaths. You don't even have to take them deep, just breathe for three times. And then just kind of notice what sensations are happening in your body and watch them like you're watching a movie. These are something easy that you can do as a state of mindfulness, as a state of awareness. And it gives you an opportunity to practice slowing down and seeing how you feel, because sometimes we don't even realize when we're anxious.
Right.
We're just going.
Right.
Yeah. Or frustrated. We're just going. So yeah, awareness.
When you're talking about breathing, I love This Is Us. That's like my favorite show. And one of the guys, or in one of the scenes, they were just talking about, when we are trying to survive, we forget to breathe. And it's so crazy how the one thing that keeps us alive is the one thing that we forget to do. And when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that is true. That is so true, because in the moments of anxiety, in the moments of pressure, we could find ourselves like holding our breath. And so the work that you do is just like increasing the mindfulness of breathing. I know you said that that's a vehicle for what you do in terms of like your trauma work and like working with all the various clients that you work with, but breathing is so important.
Oh yes, I love that quote.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good quote. Because breathing is one of the nutrients for living. If you're wanting to see it in a food metaphor here, without it, we're not surviving. When we're stuck in a space that, if anything, if you're anxious, if you're frustrated, if you're angry, if you're stressed out, if you're sad, chances are you are not breathing deep enough for your body to make space for relaxation. And I'm gonna geek out for just a moment. Okay? So I want to just say to you, there's 2 parts of the body, or two parts of our nervous systems in our body that are responsible for this pattern here. And so if we're trying to access relaxation, we need to be accessing what's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And it is responsible for relaxation, rest, and our digestion. And a big portion of us are not accessing this parasympathetic nervous system on a regular basis. We're on the other nervous system, which is our sympathetic nervous system. And this nervous system is beautiful, but it's responsible for adrenaline. It's responsible for action. It's responsible for focus and concentration. And so if we're always in do mode and go mode, and I gotta fix this and I gotta stay busy, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system, which creates what's called I'm drawing a blank, respiratory alkalosis. And that's a beautiful fancy word for stress, okay? High blood pressure, too much acid in the blood. When you have too much acid in the blood, there's not enough oxygen, and you're not breathing deep enough. So always returning back to the breath is going to really take care of a lot of illnesses, if you think about it.
Right.
Take care of a lot of illnesses, not just mental, but physical too, and it keeps you focused. So a couple deep breaths throughout the day, having a relationship with your breath is really going to get you out of that consistent action mode, and it invites you to slow down.
Right. And I'm glad that you went through all of that, because it shows how everything is so interconnected. Like, a lot of people just seem to believe that like your mental wellness is separate from your physical wellness. And so I love how therapists now are merging the two together, or showing their clients that the two cannot survive without one another. That's super important.
So important. And I'm a big body focused therapist. So a big part of what I always tell my clients is talk therapy alone is not going to work. Like, talk therapy alone must be combined when you are accessing the body too. If you're forgetting to pay attention to the body, you're forgetting to pay attention to the way the soul speaks. And I believe that the body is the way the soul speaks. You know, some people say the eyes, but that's the same thing as the body, right? It's the same
still a body
thing.
part.
It's still a body part, right? And so what they're really saying is, in order for you to really listen to your spirit, your highest intuition, you're gonna have to slow down to pay attention to what kind of sensations are going on. How are you breathing? What are you noticing inside of here? How are you feeling?
Right.
If you're not noticing that and you're just coming from the mental, then you're gonna be bypassing that part of you that has the ability to access the parasympathetic nervous system.
Right. And it also helps with grounding as well, like those grounding techniques, making sure that you're aware of what's going on with your body, making sure you're aware of your surroundings and things of that nature. I think when you become more aware of what's happening in all aspects, then you're able to kind of bring yourself back to a balance. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. And especially when you say that, I think about paying attention to the senses, like your normal 5 senses.
Yeah.
Your sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. These are your 5 senses. When you just slow down and pay attention to, what am I smelling? What am I tasting? What am I touching? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? Like, all of these different things, you can't help but to take a pause from your thoughts and come back into what your body is noticing just through the senses alone.
Right.
So yeah. That's beautiful.
One thing I wanted to go back to is the term that you use, self-compassion.
Yeah.
Because we always hear self-love, we always hear self-esteem, but we do not hear self-compassion a lot. And I know, particularly as like women of color, or just people of color in general, we tend to struggle with that because we're always the person who is I want to say the head of the household, but the one that's always fixing something, the one that's always picking up the major projects at work, the one that's always like the go-getter or trying to run the family business or this and that or the third, or we take unnecessary burdens and unnecessary responsibilities on ourselves. And we're trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations of society. And so how can you usher somebody into self-compassion, or how can somebody learn to adopt self-compassion?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. So I think that it always goes back to having an awareness of what self-compassion really means. So if we talk about compassion is this act of kindness that you have in reverence for all things alive and living. And to make that even simpler, in order for us to have kindness, we have to be able to respect and trust this aspect of living. So if I'm saying to you, I can respect and trust you, that means that I respect your process, I respect who you are, and I trust that you know what you're doing. So if we turn that back to ourselves, then we're saying I respect my process, I trust that I'm going in the direction I'm going in, and that's good. That's good enough.
Right.
That's good enough. So I always break down the word relationship. Inside of the word relationship is the word relate. And in order for you to relate to another person, you have to respect and trust the other person, meaning you have to respect that they got a process, you got to trust them enough to let them have that process and be able to communicate that, which is why communication is such a big thing in relationships. Yes. Huge. So if you take that same thing and you turn it back on yourself, how can I relate to me? We spend so much time trying to relate to everything else. How can I figure this out? How can I notice this? How can I trust that? How can I trust this? But what about you? When you're feeling sad or you're feeling like you're in a struggling space, one of the things we automatically do is we disconnect from ourselves. We start to beat ourselves up. We become our main abusers.
Right.
We start criticizing who we are. We start telling ourselves we're not doing good enough. We need to be the best at this. We need to have high achieving over here. Like we completely disconnect from our ability to respect and relate to where we are in the moment. So having self-compassion looks like, how can I relate to myself? And here's what that sounds like. You're having a hard day. Let's take kids, for example, because there's a lot of women who've got kids out there, and it is hard to parent these kids sometimes when they are crying, they're having their own process. And so when you're having this, say you're out in the grocery store and this kid starts to throw a tantrum, and immediately rejection is going to hit, and you're going to be thinking, oh my God, people are looking at me. I don't want to spank my kid because I don't know if CPS is going to get right. Like, you're thinking of all the things. People are paying attention. Oh my God, what do I do now?
Right.
And there's this sense of embarrassment and shame that tends to pop up when you feel like, oh my God, I'm going to be rejected. People aren't going to like what I'm doing here. And so instead of going into that direction, self-compassion would look like turning it back on yourself and saying, you know what? Putting your hands on your body and just saying, I know what it feels like to be embarrassed, and I've been there before, and it's okay, we're gonna get through this. You're saying that to yourself as if you're talking to another person. You're not focusing on getting the kid, ushering them out the store and throwing them in the car and beating their ass. You're not doing any of that. You're focusing, you may want to,
right,
but you're focusing on, I'm scared right now. I'm embarrassed right now. And I'm going to show myself some love and compassion. I'm going to relate to myself. I've been where you are. I know what it feels like, as if you're talking to another person. And we're going to get through it.
Right.
And so automatically that slowly starts to calm you down. You say, you know what? This is going to be over soon. My kid's going to calm down. I'm going to take some deep breaths here. And I'm going to relate to my kid now too. I can relate now because I'm like, oh, I've not gotten my way before, and I've wanted to throw a tantrum, and I have. So, am I gonna beat myself for throwing a tantrum? Probably not. Maybe. Yeah. But compassion looks like empathizing with yourself, relating to yourself, and having that space of saying, it's okay, I know where you are, and we're gonna get through it.
Mm-hmm. A big part of that process that I really appreciated was the fact that you identified those feelings of embarrassment, resentment, or rejection, all of those things. And oftentimes we don't really know what word to put towards our feelings.
Yeah.
And it's especially within this society where we're trying to disassociate with our feelings. I think that's just very cool. And so I think another important component to that is just expanding our feelings words a little bit, because we may think that we're mad, but like anger is just like the tip of the iceberg, but underneath it there's so many other feelings underneath. You know.
Oh yeah, that's juicy right there, because it's something that I also teach, which is helping clients really figure out, what are you really feeling? And so one exercise that I do with people, and especially in terms of coming back home to yourself. I go through a 4-part process, and is it okay if I share it?
Go ahead.
All right. So I always say, you know, go to a space where you're not going to be interrupted, where you have at least 5 minutes of alone time. And the first step you want to always do is check in with yourself. So as if you're talking to another person, you want to be talking to yourself. And you go in, you close your eyes, and you ask yourself, how am I feeling? Because you may be feeling angry initially, but another feeling might arise for you. You may start to feel tears wanting to come up, and you're like, oh my God, I'm feeling sad, I'm not angry. Or, oh God, I'm feeling scared, my heart is racing fast. Or whatever the case may be, you may find another emotion right up underneath the iceberg.
Right.
And once you can identify that, then you pause and then you move on to the next step. This is a beautiful way to have compassion for yourself and talk yourself through it. So you move on to the next step and you ask yourself as if you would be asking another person, what do you need right now? Because I find that one of the hardest things, especially for women and especially for people of color, is admitting to what it is that you actually need. Because if I'm trying to disconnect from myself and I'm trying to disconnect from my feelings, I'm not going to be in tune with what I need. I don't even know what that means. I don't even know what that looks like.
Yeah.
So really getting clear about what do I need in the moment. And you may come and find out that I just need some playtime. I just need some alone time. I just need a vacation. You may come back to that knowledge and just sit and wait for the answer to pop up. Try not to force the answer to come up. Then the third thing that I always have you ask yourself is asking yourself, how can I help you? Literally putting yourself in your spirit guide seat, your higher power seat, and being your own wisdom. How can I help you? And so now maybe you start getting responses to, well, we would like to go to have a spa day today. Okay, cool. Well, let's go ahead and sign up for a spa day, right? Yeah. So just trusting whatever answer, even if it doesn't fully make sense, whatever answer pops in for you. And then the fourth step is to send thanks, send gratitude to yourself, to all the parts of you that showed up in the moment, that said, hey, here are the answers. And just like that, you've gotten some clarity about how to move forward in a compassionate and loving way. And those are just the ways to really come back and honor yourself and how to process your own emotions from this very self-compassionate, self-loving way.
I love that. I love that. Just honing in on you, focusing on you and your needs. I think that's like dumb important. Yeah. And I think it's super important because, like I said, we talked about this earlier about the age of comparison and how we're like constantly trying to get to a certain place and not honoring our own journey. I think that's really important.
Honoring the journey.
Yes.
Honoring the journey. I love that phrase. Because it really is so important when we are going through life, especially when we're trying to compare ourselves to everybody, which is normal to do. Like we have a goal in mind and we see it and we're like, I want that. We're trying to manifest this goal and we see everybody else already manifesting that goal. So we're like, how can I do what you're doing? Because I want that. That's what I want. Why am I not getting it? What's wrong with me?
Right.
And we automatically go to that judgment space when it's like, but you can have what you want. You can carve your life out the exact way you want it to be. Life doesn't have to look that way. You just have to be able to get through some blocks first to be able to recognize that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love how you said that it's okay. Like comparison isn't bad because that's how we learn how to grow and then we figure out what we enjoy and what we don't like. But the danger is when we start pointing the gun towards ourselves.
Ooh, big time.
And start pulling the trigger. Like, because it really does become harmful. It does become a detriment because we start challenging our own self-efficacy and whatnot. That
is the danger. One of the things that tends to happen when rejection is at the base of all of our discomfort, because no matter who you are automatically acting from a space of I don't want to be rejected. If you're trying to measure up to a relationship standard or a goal standard, you're like, in order for me to be, have, and do what I say I want to do, I need you to like it. I need this person to like it. I need this place to accept me. I need this thing to make it work for me. I need it to be perfect and easy. It's called acceptance. We want acceptance. So we struggle so much with desiring acceptance, and that the fear of rejection is always right there at the base of it. And when we're in the space of rejection, the automatic three things that tends to pop up for us is possessiveness, control, and or violence. Right? Those are the three ways we're gonna act when things don't go our way. We gonna either try to control it, we're gonna try to possess it, or we're gonna be real violent about it to make sure we get what we want.
Oh, and you just speaking my language right now. Because that is so true. Like, we get into this place of like fear of rejection. And I know a lot of us, or particularly like millennials, we're in this in-between state where we really don't give a damn about what other people think about us, but we're also still trying to get this job. We're also trying to get this new platform and whatnot. And I think one of the reasons why I was like super drawn to you when I first met you at the circle, I was just like, she's my spirit animal. She has like all the tattoos, all the characters I want to get. But I know as a new clinician, I can't do that because I'm trying to get a job that's going to hire me, and you know, me working within the hospital setting and so on and so forth. And so I think a lot of us are challenged with trying to achieve our authentic self, or allow our authentic self to have the room to breathe. But we can't. And that's a struggle, you know? And I know a lot of people are definitely struggling with that as well. It's just like, here is me in all of my fullness, and I accept me for me, but will other people accept me for me?
Ooh. That's my life story, okay? I can't tell you, and I really want to relate to you in that moment. And I also want to challenge you too, because even though, yes, a new clinician, and there are all these different rules about what you can and can't do, you still can. It's a choice, right? I struggled at the very beginning because, I'm tatted up, I got, stretched lobes, and I didn't have that at the beginning. I had all my stuff covered. And I always, and I'm very spiritual, and I'm on that woo-woo tip, so I'm very psychic, so there's so many different things that I wanted to incorporate in my therapy session that I was like, ooh, can I bring this to the space? I don't know. Can I burn my incense and light a candle, pull some cards? Like, can I do that? And I would feel uncomfortable, and I realized that it started to affect how I showed up as a therapist and how I did my work, because I just wasn't able to be who I was. And so the minute I say, you know what, fuck it, I'm about to dress how I want to dress, because I do not like professional clothes, like the suits, and that's perfect for some people. That is just not my style. I've got on tie-dye pants right now, the black shirt, beautiful ball of beads, and I really wanted to show up in my fullness. And so I said, if I'm not going to get a job because of how I am dressed or what I present like, then it wasn't my space, because I know that in order for me to really connect with the person, I have to come from an authentic place. And if I want you to be authentic, I need to show up and be comfortable with you. So, hospitals, there are many people in hospitals with tattoos, stretch lobes. You can have it. And it allowed me to be myself. I remember the first time I wanted to set up an altar in my therapy room, and I asked my director, I was like, hey, I'm kind of struggling with this. Do you think it's okay if I set up an altar? Do you think my clients are gonna find issues with it? And she said, you know what, do what feels good for you, and just hold that level of transparency, and that's what happens. So I say that because, you may be in a space where you feel you can't, but I believe that that's also the limit of your mindset, right? So if you go beyond that and you're like, well, what will I do? Will I allow myself to go here? And see, but that's where vulnerability gets the best of us. Right.
It's like, it's so scary. It's like, oh my God, am I supposed to just trust that people are gonna accept this?
Right.
I don't know if I'm ready for that level yet. It's challenging.
It is definitely challenging, and two things that you said. Find spaces that appreciate you.
Yes. That is key. That is super, super key. And then also find people that will support your journey. I think that's what social support plays a major role. And then I'm really glad that your director was able to provide that space for you, because at the end of the day, when we are able to operate in our authentic selves, our clients get the most or get the best from us.
I think one of the common things around people living with depression, I noticed that they don't have enough support. And so having spaces where you feel supported and figuring out what that looks like. I know sometimes I'll have clients who don't even know where to begin to find those support systems. Maybe they don't have spaces where they can show up and be themselves, and they don't even know where to look. And one place that I have learned from my journey has always been to go to Meetup. Meetup.com. Because there are so many interests that you can get into and go and I had to put myself in spaces where I knew I had interest in, but it made me scared enough to say, I need more social supports in my life, so let me put myself out there. And I had to force myself, I had to guide myself to find these supports, even though it was scary, but it gave me a place to come back to where I was like, all right, I got people in my life. And so I encourage you to find supports. If you don't have it in your family, don't have it in your immediate social circle, go find people. If it's not face-to-face, online is also another good place for social support.
Definitely. And I know a lot of people tend to focus on, well, either the online or like the in-person communities. There's always a great way to find your tribe. So definitely find your tribe. Getting back to the online support, because you have a lot of online courses and whatnot. Can we dig in a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So I love teaching. I love teaching. And so I have a course that I am creating right now that is almost finished, and I'm really excited for it, but it's called Dharma Pleasure Code, and it's really a space to help women, again, learn to prioritize their pleasure. And what that looks like is we're going to learn how to prioritize not only just your erotic pleasure, but you're also learning how to prioritize your mental pleasures, learning to have mindsets that make you feel good, learning to shift from those mindsets that don't make you feel good. So figuring out what that looks like, and then also stepping into the space where we're now boosting your self-esteem. Because I believe that inherently we are born with high self-esteem. I think life knocks us down afterwards. Because little kids, they just know that they're shit. Like, they don't think about it, they don't question it, they just do. And so we step into that space of really figuring out, where are my achievements, how am I accomplished, and figuring out even what those little ones look like. So we step into that space as well, and then we step into the spiritual and emotional pleasure, because oftentimes we're looking to feel good, we're looking to feel happy over and over and over again, but it's really not about happiness. It's really about having access to peace, and peace is a lot more withstanding than happiness. Happiness is like any other flutterbug emotion. It's like sadness, it's like anger. You're gonna feel it when you feel it, and it's not gonna stay for very long. Joy is one of those things that comes when you have peace. Peace is that inner access. I know how I feel and I'm okay with it. I know that I'm angry and it's part of the process. That's called peace. Knowing how to be calm in the storm. So I teach you how to do that, how to be able to access that and make that a priority for you. And then, like I said, erotic pleasure is part of it, because there's a lot of women who are struggling with depression and anxiety who don't have healthy sexuality. They don't have healthy sex lives. They don't have healthy connections to their bodies. They don't even know what that looks like, and they're not orgasmic. And so I teach you how to use the breath and your own sexual energy to really start creating some healing and some manifestations in your life. If you want to go, you can use sexual energy. I will teach you how to do that. If you try to bring in something to you, you're going to be able to learn how to do that through these techniques. So this whole program is to access your pleasure on all levels.
All levels. Love it.
Yes.
Well, Evanie, can you let the people know where they can find you on social media, your website, that way they can get to register for these courses?
Yes! So, wonderful people, you can find me on cultivateselflove.com. And if you want to find me on Instagram, you can find me on Instagram at cultivateselflove, or you can find me on Facebook at the Self-Love Center. And so no matter where you find me, all of my stuff is interconnected, and it will always lead you to my courses and my classes and my services.
And her website also has her calendar, so you guys definitely stay tuned. I will definitely include all of that stuff, like I said, in the description box below. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and definitely stay connected via Legacy SPKS on everything. Until next time.
Yeah.